What is going on? It is the middle of August and the Red Mile Rundown coming to you fresh with a brand new episode 41 of the show. I am your host, Johnny Soap, and alongside me, as always, my co-host, Robert Munich. How are we today, Robert?
Life is good, no complaints. There's nothing better than talking a little Flames hockey on August 18th.
It was funny. I sat down to start doing a little bit of prep for this show, and my brain's like, what are you doing, John? The Kansas City Chiefs don't play hockey. And I'm like, I know. My brain is all football mode right now because NFL season's upon us here. But we'll get it straightened out. We'll talk some Flames hockey today. Want to do a quick shout out to everyone who downloaded and shared and all that good jazz at the last episode 2 weeks ago. Really good response. I have to say, Robert, I haven't told you this yet either, so you'll be a bit surprised here. Last week's episode and the one before that, when we talked about the season that was and looking a little forward with the forwards and then the defense and the goaltending, those two episodes have now become the most listened to episodes in the history of the Red Mile Rundown. A little surprised that it's 2 summer episodes, so people are itching for some Flames conversation, Robert.
I love it. Well, you know what? It kind of makes sense because pretty much every sort of like Flame source, every sort of podcast or radio show out there is going on Flames hiatus for the next month here. So yeah, I can see why people are coming to the show. It's awesome and really appreciate it.
Yeah, really much appreciate it. I just a little taken back that these two are the most listened to. So I have high hopes for this coming season for the show and for what the fans are going to bring to this show as well. Awesome. Appreciate all of you. Robert, it is August, so there's not a lot of newsy stuff going on with the Flames, but you had a great idea to look forward to next season. Start talking about looking forward to training camp, but looking forward to what we're going to see from the Flames, what we can potentially see from the team this year and the results of this season. Let's get an overview though of where you think the Flames are as we stand here on see where my brain's at.
Getting ahead of yourself here.
Yeah, on August 18th, where do you think the Flames are standing? Your overview of the Flames, what they're looking like for you right now today as we record here on the 18th.
You know what? This is one of those teams where any sort of outcome would not surprise me. I guess the one thing that would surprise me is they finish at the top of the league, which obviously is not going to happen. But what I mean by that is I can absolutely see a world where this team gets into a wild card spot or maybe even the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division and makes the playoffs. I can see a world where they finish just outside, kind of like they did last season and end up, in that dreaded 16 to 15 range in the draft and missing the playoffs. And I can also see a world where they're picking in the top 10 in the draft next year and they finish the season in the bottom 10 of the NHL standings. It's one of those weird rosters where, there's a lot to like, but man, there's a lot of question marks there too. So heading into the year, I think from a fan perspective, I actually think this is going to be an interesting season because of that, just because you don't really know what to expect and you don't really know what to expect from a lot of the players on this team. So, it's not like we're heading into a year where it's like, okay, we're the Chicago Blackhawks. We're definitely going to finish in the bottom 3 or, hey, we're Vegas, we're definitely going to finish near the top of the league. And, it's going to be a pretty boring regular season. This could actually be a really interesting regular season for the Calgary Flames, just because, like I said, we just don't know what the heck is going to happen. So that's kind of where my head's at on the state of the team. I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I look at this team and I'm like, they didn't really change a whole lot. And last year,
anything.
And then, well, they changed the backup goaltender. Come on, Robert, that's a little.
That's a big deal.
But it's just you look at it and you're like, what we saw last year was a team that worked really hard. They scratched, they clawed. They didn't get all the breaks, but they did get some breaks. They were able to claw their way, and they were essentially a half a point away from being a playoff team. They were right there in that race to the bitter end. When you look at this roster, this offseason, and the mantra from this team has been one more point. We got to be one more point better. And you look at them like, you haven't done anything, though, to be 1 point better. But at the same time, you look at the roster like, I can see them being a point better. But I can, much like you, Robert, I can also see them being 10 points worse. It's a lot of question marks around this team for me at this point of the season. I like the quieter offseason the Flames have had because we had quite a few loud off seasons with the Lindholms and the Hannafins wanting to leave. And then last year you had other questions, and then people brought up the Kadri name. And so it's been a bit of a quieter offseason with really only the one question mark with Rasmus Andersson that's been around the team here. So I can see it going a number of different ways here for the thing. So for me, the Flames have one question to answer, and that is, what is this team? Are they who we thought they were last year? Are they better? Are they worse? Because I'm much like you, Robert. I can see any of those scenarios playing out. You can sell me on a bounce back for Sharon Govich and Pospisil and so on and so forth. You could sell me on Kadri taking a step back, Dustin Wolf regressing a little bit. You can sell me on a lot of different things and a lot of different paths for this Flames. So for me, it's a lot of what ifs. What is this Calgary Flames team? And if we see here in August, obviously we're not going to get those answers, but the potential to be a playoff team is there, but a potential to be a top 10 team is also right in front of this team here.
You think so? Hey, like what do you think the ceiling is for this team?
I think they can be in that top 3 of the Pacific Division here. You saw last year that they were able to scratch and claw, and if they can continue that hardworking mentality that Ryan Huska is trying to instill in this group, and they get the bounce backs from, say, a Sharon Govich, or they get a step forward from a guy that they're not expecting a step forward from, more offense from, say, the fourth line, those type of things, they can vault themselves into that conversation. They weren't that far behind Edmonton. If you go back and look at it for who finished third in the Pacific Division last year.
Yeah, they're only 5 points behind the Oilers.
Right? And so that's just a couple of, you beat the Oilers once and you pick up a couple of extra other points along the way, you find yourself right there in that picture. So that potential is there because we saw them almost achieve just that. But you also have to be cautious in thinking that positive because the other side could also happen. They weren't that far from being a bottom 10 team at a point in the season as well. So you have to kind of think about it there. But I think the ceiling of this team can be a top 3 in Pacific Division. They just have to have things go their way. And that mentality of everyone pushing and everyone pulling the wagon and everyone taking a step forward has to happen for the Flames to achieve that, though.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. But like you said, if they're going to push for that third spot in the Pacific or even a wild card spot, this is going to have to be one of those seasons where everything goes right. And we've seen it happen in the past, but another interesting thing about this team is that we've seen them kind of go like good season, bad season, good season, bad season, good season, bad season. And last year, I would consider that a good year. The year prior was an awful year. So, we're coming up on another bad year in terms of just like the cycle of Calgary Flames hockey. It'll be interesting to see if they can kind of break out of that and find a little bit more consistency as an organization here.
I think as well, you got to look at those when you have that cycle that the Flames have been having the last little while here. Their head coaching cycle has gone very similar as well. You have a good season that first year of a head coach, then it falls off, then they replace the head coach and we start all over again. So this for me as well, not only are we looking at certain players, like you're looking at Farabee, you're looking at Sharon Govich, you're looking at Kadri to repeat that season, you're looking at what is Zari, what is Pospisil. You're also looking at, can Ryan Huska elevate himself and his coaching to help pull this team up a little bit further? Because I would hate to see another coaching change happen because this team fails again. And I don't think we're going to see it unless it's really, really bad. But it's the pressure also has to be there for Ryan Huska. So this good season, bad season thing, I think if the Flames, obviously, if they want to be a playoff team, they got to curb that pattern here a little bit. And I wonder how likely it is that we see a forward progressing season. How likely do you think it is, Robert, in your opinion, we see the Flames take a step forward? We see Sharon Govich and Farabee find their scoring touches, their offensive touches. We see the defense take a step forward. Guys like Perek fill into this lineup. How likely do you think it is to actually see a step forward here? Or do we have a regression in your eyes?
I mean, so they were a 96-point team last year. They're 15th in the overall NHL standings, and they did that as a group that was definitely built to finish in the bottom 10 of the league. So I think last year they definitely punched well above their weight class, and just because of the lack of player movement this offseason, because they're coming in with the same group. I mean, I do see this team taking a small step back. I have a hard time seeing them get to that 96-point range again. The most points I could see them getting is kind of like the low 90s, maybe high 80s, just because like I said, so many things need to go their way. Like they'll need Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman, two guys in their 30s, to continue to be two of the best shutdown forwards in the NHL. They'll need a 35-year-old Nazem Kadri to be a 70-point guy, a 30-plus goal scorer. They'll need Jonathan Huberdeau, who's been wildly inconsistent during his time with the Flames, and now he's also into his 30s. They need him to be pretty much like a 65, 70 point player. And then there's all the guys that you mentioned, all those guys in the middle of the lineup. Joel Farabee, nobody knows what to expect from him. Morgan Frost, same deal. Martin Pospisil, can he score 12, 15 goals this year, or is he more of that 4 or 5 goal kind of fourth line player? Sharon Govich, Jesus Christ, who knows what the hell to expect from this guy? And then you got Connor Zary, who he showed flashes of brilliance last year, but just kind of wasn't able to get the production that his on ice play showed. So like there's so many things. Like, and then you look on the blue line, like what's going to happen to Rasmus Andersson? If Anderson's gone within the first couple months of the season, this team's going to be in big trouble, because all of a sudden that defense core goes from kind of middle of the pack in the NHL to bottom 10. And then, can Joel Hanley, as a 34, 35-year-old, can he continue to play high-end minutes with a guy like Mackenzie Weegar? Like, it's so much has to go right for this team in order for them to get back to that kind of 96-point range. It's going to be really difficult to do. And, it can happen. Like I said, we've seen these types of seasons from the Flames quite often, but it's asking a lot from this group of players where there's no superstar, right? So I would say that, they can make the playoffs, yes, but like I said, a lot of stuff needs to go their way.
Yeah, and a great point brought up by you yesterday when we were talking about the same conversation as well is the Flames can have all these things go their way. They could have Sharon Govich score 30 again, like Coleman's in the mid-20s of goals. Kadri repeats that 35-goal season. Huberdeau's back to 80 points, yada, yada, yada. You can have all those things go right for you. But then you have to remember, there are other teams in this division that have also improved. I would say that Vegas is obviously better with Marner in tow with them. The Oilers, what are the Oilers? But they always seem to be able to be in that mix of the playoff teams. What is Vancouver? What is Seattle? You go down the list here of these teams in division. Are they good enough then to be better than these teams who are going out there trying to improve themselves as well? And then you look at the Central Division, because you got to look at the wild card race as well. St. Louis, you would argue, is better. Minnesota, you could argue, is better. Winnipeg's still going to be a force. Colorado is always going to be a force. So the road to the playoffs, even if everything goes well for the Flames, isn't going to be an easy one, because you have all these teams standing between them and making the playoffs. You remember, you have to be better than everybody else to make these playoff races and to be in this mix here. Being 1 point better than last season might not be good enough for the Flames, even if they are playing 1 point better like they want to. They might not have enough to get into the playoffs. And if they regress back to that 92, 93 points, is that going to be enough to make the playoffs? I don't know. I really don't know, but it's a very interesting conversation to have here, because they're not going to be the ones to say, okay, Vancouver, you're not going to make it. They're not going to be the team that's going to go there and be like, no, this year, St. Louis, we're taking that wild card spot. They have to take care of their business and hope they can vault ahead of these other teams and be better than these other teams here. Is this roster good enough, especially without Rasmus Andersson if they trade him down the line? Is this roster good enough to elevate and be 1 point better than last year?
Yeah, you make a good point. Like I take a look at the West, and I think almost every team either got better or is going to stay right around the same as they were last year. Like Seattle, they add Marchment, they add Gaudreau, they add Ryan Lindgren on defense, so they're a little bit better of a team. And like, can Shane Wright become a star? Can Beniers finally break out, become a star? Like, if those things happen, Seattle will probably be in the mix. They'll probably be in that high 80-point range. Like, Anaheim's going to be better. Utah's going to be better. Vancouver, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for the Canucks last year, and they still finished with 90 points. So I would assume Vancouver could be a little bit better of a team next year. Like, I really like St. Louis. Minnesota, if they can stay healthy, they're going to be a guaranteed playoff team. Like, LA had 105 points last year. They finished sixth in the NHL standings. Like they're a good team, and a lot of people are sleeping on them. They're still a good team. So there's so much competition in the West for the Calgary Flames. Like, they're going to be in tough. Like, I'd say there's probably like 6 locks in the West to make the playoffs next year. So that pretty much means that there's going to be 2 wildcard spots open. And, you're competing with St. Louis. You're competing with Vancouver, Utah, Anaheim, Seattle. Like, it's not going to be easy. So, like we said, just things are just going to have to go their way if they're going to want to be competitive, and if they're going to want to be a playoff team, which is the goal. That's what Craig Conroy and Murray Edwards wants next year. So, Dustin Wolf is going to have to be amazing again, and they're going to have to get contributions throughout the lineup because there's not one guy that can carry this team. And it's going to be real. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. Like, I know there's some people that are kind of down on the team right now just because they are they are in the mushy middle 100%, but like just from like a storyline standpoint, entertainment standpoint, like I still think that there's going to be some exciting hockey and there's going to be a lot of storylines to follow this year.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We've talked about it in the past too, where these certain players have to look in that rearview mirror because there's players coming. The Flames have to be aware of that as well. We can't count out San Jose's and the Anaheims. Even if they're not going to be a playoff team, they can still catch you on a night and take points, valuable points away from you. That hurt the Flames a couple seasons ago when they kept losing to the Chicago Blackhawks. So you got to be mindful of those teams behind you trying to get better as well. They're coming for those points. They're coming for you. They're coming to try to take a next step in their development as well. So it's not only these teams you're trying to chase down, the St. Louis's, the Minnesotas, the Edmontons, et cetera, et cetera. You got to watch out. Anaheim's going to be a much better team. You outlined it there. You made a great point about Seattle. If the Kraken can get goaltending, I think that's a team that's going to be in the mix to the end. So you got to make sure that you're looking at both sides of the coin here when you're the Calgary Flames. Like, yes, you want to be 1 point better, but there are other teams looking to take those points off of you. Captain Obvious statement there, of course. But it's all up to the Flames here. If the Flames can go out here and be the hardworking team that we have come accustomed to watching the last little while here, and can start imposing their will a little bit more on some of these teams, they can scratch and claw their way into that playoffs. I honestly believe they can do it with the roster currently constructed, but they also have to make sure that they're not just going to give up these points to these teams behind them, trying to catch them in the standings as well. So it's kind of a catch-22 for the Flames here. It's easy to make this next case, Robert. It's easy to take the other side of the coin and say why this team will not be a playoff team. This one for me is the lazy person on Twitter argument of, well, Dustin Wolf's going to regress. There's no way Kadri scores 35 goals again. This team's not a playoff team on paper. They missed last year. They're going to miss again. How likely is it in your eyes that they actually do miss the playoffs for a second straight year here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a fourth, actually.
Is it 4?
Yeah.
It is 4. I'm off a year.
Yeah, it's
apparently John August 18th and John can't count.
Yeah, first you thought it was October. Now you think the Flames are going to miss the playoffs for the second year in a row.
Wake up, John. I'm ready for the kids to go back to school. We'll put it that way.
I mean, I don't want to be negative, but like, it's definitely realistic that this team is that they can miss the playoffs. Like if I were to put a percentage point on it, like I would say probably a 75-80% chance that they don't make it. And I think it's for the reasons that we just outlined. I just think that the West is really good. There's a lot of really good teams that are around them right now. Like I especially look at Utah. I think Utah's going to take a major step forward this year. So it's just another team that they have to compete with in that mix. So, like I said, there's no star players on this team. It's basically everyone needs to play to their career average or above if this Flames team is going to make the playoffs, because we all know that they're going to have a hard time scoring goals. Mm-hmm. So, you're going to need Backlund and Coleman to score a few more goals. And once again, they're playing crazy defensive matchups and they're in their 30s. I don't know if that's realistic. You need Joel Farabee to be like an 18 to 22 goal guy. You need Morgan Frost to be a 15 to 20 goal guy and like a 50-point player. You need Huberdeau to be 60 plus points. Kadri as a 35-year-old, you need him to be in that 60, 70-point range. And then, you look at Pospisil, he's got to score at least 10 goals. Sharon Govich has got to be in the 25 range. Zeri's got to be in the 50-point range. It's just like so many things need to go right offensively for this team to be able to score enough goals to make the playoffs. Because, like, you can't just rely on Dustin Wolf every single night.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they did last year and Dan Vladar in the last couple months of the season. I think the Flames were 29th in goals last year, and they were dead last for the majority of the season. And it was their goaltending that just kept them in it. And goaltending is just such a crazy position. It's such a voodoo position that you just don't really know what to expect. I think Dustin Wolf is going to be really good again, just because of just how athletic he is and just how much success he's had at every single level. I just don't see him falling off, but you just never know. So, yeah, I do think it's definitely a realistic possibility for the Flames to miss the playoffs this year. Like I said, I'd probably put it, 75-80% chance that they do. And, hopefully I'm wrong, because with the plan that Craig Conroy has, it's like, well, there's no point in cheering for losses. There's no point in wanting the team to tank, because it's just not going to happen. So, you might as well cheer for wins. You might as well hope for nothing but the most success for this team next season. And yeah, it's going to be tough. They're in tough, man. They really are.
I look at it as, and I'm going to try not to be Debbie Downer when I talk about this. People talk about the rise and fall of Dustin Wolf. What actually is he going to be next year? I think that's beside the point, because I think the problem for this Flames team is, and we spent last episode trying to sell the Flames defense to everybody. How does this team defend? Especially after they trade Rasmus Sanderson, you're going to be relying on a 34-year-old Hanley to play big minutes, possibly a 19-year-old Perek to play big minutes. You're asking Pahal or Jake Bean, or even, dare I say, Mira Manoff to step in there and give serviceable minutes, which was a hard time at points last year. You're trying to rely a lot on a 30-year-old Mackenzie Weegar and a newly signed Kevin Ball to really carry the load once Rasmus Anderson's away. So I really wonder how this Flames team is going to defend next year. And those question marks are a big question of where I think the Flames are going to end up at the end of the year. If they can find answers to how they're going to defend other teams and help Dustin Wolf out and help the forwards out, then I think this team is a playoff team. On the flip side, if we're not going to see progression from guys like Ball or Perek or any of these other young defensemen that are coming up, then I think this Flames team is going to struggle. Regardless of how good Mackenzie Weegar is, he can only do so much in his 24, 25 minutes he'll get every single night. He needs help. He needs other people to come along here. So the back end for me is a big question mark for this Flames team. I like some of those pieces. I'm a big fan of Weegar, big fan of Ball. Excited to see what Perek can bring to the lineup. Excited to see, but maybe a Kuznetsov or Solovyov might bring to this lineup if they play. But there's so many question marks on that blue line for me. And what is Jake Bean going to bring to this lineup this year? We saw a wide range of Jake Bean last year. Can Pahal repeat what we saw last year? So we can talk about the Flames not being able to score goals, which is an absolute fact. They need to find ways to manufacture offense. We can talk about Dustin Wolf, whether he's going to progress or regress. But for me, the path to the being in the playoffs or not in the playoffs rests in the middle there with those defensemen. And it's going to take those guys a big group of a big step forward from a lot of guys here to be better than they were last year, or to be as good as they were last year in Mackenzie Weegar's case, and pull this team forward here, because you look on paper, it's not really all that inspiring, in my opinion. And we'll see what that can bring for the Flames here, because and this will lead us to the next topic here, Robert, is if this defense falters, if this defense isn't any good, if you're really just relying on Mackenzie Weegar and they're quote unquote, and heaven forbid, there's one injury to those top four guys, where are you going after that? Who's behind those guys picking up those minutes? Because that could very quickly lead to this team being a lottery team.
You know what's crazy is that you can make an argument that Joel Hanley might be like the most important defenseman on the Flames next year. Just like when you think about last season, the defense was all over the map. Like Weegar was playing with Miramanov, then they moved Weegar to the left side, and then all of a sudden Weegar's with Hanley, and then he's back with Miramanov. Like it was all over the map. The only consistency you had was in the Anderson and Ball pairing, and they struggled when it comes to the defensive metrics. So once Joel Hanley stepped in to that spot with Mackenzie Weegar on the left side of that pairing, like things really calmed down on the back end. And heading into next year, so assuming Anderson's on the team, you know what you're going to get from Anderson and Ball. You know what you're going to get from Weegar. Yep. You know what you're going to get from Pahal, and then Parek's going to step in and add some juice to that third pair. But like the main guy that needs to step up just to like have some cohesion and some chemistry to this group is Hanley, and that's putting a lot of pressure on a guy who last year was his first like truly full season in the NHL, the first time he's actually shown that he can play big minutes and do it night after night after night, and he did that as like a 33-year-old. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he brings to the table this year. Can he continue that momentum that he built last year? Because I actually thought he was rock solid from like January to the end of the year. I legitimately thought he was one of their best defensemen. Like you could make an argument he was better than Rasmus Anderson. And I know Anderson was playing through injuries, but everybody plays through injuries. Mm-hmm. And like, so yeah, Joel Hanley alone, like he could be like a big time difference maker for this group, which is crazy to say because last year he was their number 8 defenseman, and guys like me were screaming that he should have been on waivers instead of Jacob Peltier, and now all of a sudden I'm having a discussion saying he's like one of the more important guys on the team. Like, this is an unbelievable turn of events for this guy.
Yeah, and I like that point by you. I think it becomes even more important if Rasmus Andersson is traded, because you need that third guy in that top 4 to really pull that team along here. He played 53 games last year, which is 9 more than his career high of 44 he played in Dallas in the 21-22 season. So to your point, Robert, he became a very important D-man to the Flames. And now you're asking him to repeat it. You're asking him to step in there at the age of 34 and do it again for you, because he becomes that's a very, very valid point by you, because now it becomes the question of if you trade Rasmus Andersson and Hanley is only half of what he was last year, what is this Flames decor? What do they bring to the table? What do you then rely on that back end? So that's why I really bring up the defense, and why I think that it's very important next year for the Flames, and really could be the determining factor between playoffs and not playoffs.
Well, and not even just like not playoffs, but the lottery.
Yes.
So if Rasmus Andersson is traded within like the first month of the season, and Joel Hanley shows that, he's not quite that top 4 caliber defenseman, like, this team all of a sudden has one of the worst blue lines in the National Hockey League. And I definitely think that would probably lead them to like a lottery spot, like being a bottom 10 team in the NHL. And it would basically take almost every forward having a career year and Dustin Wolf continuing to play out of his mind for this team to be competitive, because the blue line would be that bad.
I don't think Dominic Hasek could rescue that blue line if that happens, right? Because that's essentially like taking your second pairing right out of your lineup. What do you do 100%. Then?
And then all of a sudden you're relying on Pahal, and you're relying on guys like Solovyov and Kuznetsov, and then a 19-year-old Parekh and Miramanov, like Nick Cicek, Jake Bean. Like, it's not a deep group by any stretch of the imagination. And I do think I think probably come like February, March, I think that's when we'll see Parekh take like a really big step in his game. So I'm not too concerned about him, but all the other guys that I just listed there, I'm like, oh, that's not a deep blue line for this organization.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And it's no disrespect to these guys, because you have serviceable guys. Like Pahal is a very serviceable bottom pair guy. Bean can be an okay number 7 defenseman. Like, you have guys that can fill roles, and you need those roles filled. The problem then becomes you trade Rasmus Andersson, you have Ball, Weegar, hopefully what Hanley can bring you. Then you're hoping that Parekh is what we think Parekh is, and I think he will be. But then you're hoping Parekh takes that step by February, by March, becomes that top or a top 4 defense at the age of 19. Like, we tend to play video games and think that all these things just happen linear, because that's what happens in a video game. Like, Parekh in 3 seasons in my video game, he's an overall of an 85 defenseman, a 95 defenseman, and he's been playing top pair. It doesn't happen in real life that way. So you're hoping that a lot of things, and it's going to be the theme of the season for me, is there's going to be a lot of what ifs and hope that this goes right for the Flames, and that goes right for the Flames. Otherwise, we are looking at a lottery team. Even if you get 35 goals from Kadri, even if you get 85 points from Huberdeau, and Zeri finds the 20 goal mark for the first time, Coronado finds 20 plus goals, it won't matter if you can't defend. And it doesn't matter if it's Dustin Wolf or Dominic Hasek or Trevor Kidd or whoever else you want to throw in that net. It won't matter who's back there if you can't defend properly, because guys like McKinnon and McDavid that you're going to see multiple times over the year are just going to eat your team alive if there's no one to defend them. So it's a big question mark for the Flames here. And if it goes wrong, it can go wrong in a hurry, and in a quick way. You find yourself talking about, wow, who is that number 6, number 7 overall prospect on Elite Prospects? Or let me go over to future hockey here and see what they have listed as the number 5 or the top centerman available in this year's draft. It becomes that conversation in an absolute hurry for the Flames if they're not being able to defend very well.
Yeah, actually, there's one guy that we haven't talked about, and it's Hunter Brustevich. And
yep,
there is a possibility that he could become a full-time NHLer next year. Like, not to put too much stock into game 82, but like, he looked really good in that game against Los Angeles. Like, really, really good. His progression from where he started the year in the American League to where he finished was very impressive. Like, he just continued to get better and better and better. It wouldn't surprise me, like, after Anderson's traded, there's going to be a spot open up on the right side there. You know, I could see them moving Zane Parekh up a pair and playing with a guy like Kevin Ball, and then giving Hunter Brstevich an opportunity to show what he's got. And maybe he could be the difference, you know, him stepping up and showing that he can be a full-time NHLer. That could be huge for this Calgary Flames team. So like you said, man, a lot of what ifs here, but there are some interesting players for sure.
Yeah, and then it begs the question too. And I love Brstevich, but then you're looking at a almost 21-year-old and a 19-year-old leading that Flames blue line behind Mackenzie Weegar on the right hand side. It's a lot to ask of young kids. Doable, absolutely, fun for sure, but it's a lot to ask of young defensemen in the National Hockey League. So it can go wrong in a hurry. This team could be a playoff team. This team could be mediocre in the middle. This team could be a lottery team. All three of those situations are very much on the table for the Flames. It all depends how this team shows up and how they play, and who's going to take the step forward, and who makes the push, and who, you know, and who can fight off the regression. You have to remember the regression. Like, we're talking about two mid-30 players leading the attack. We're talking, you mentioned earlier, Backlund, Coleman, early 30s as well, trying to be the top defensive forwards in the group. We're talking about the defense quite a bit here as well. There's a lot could go a lot of different directions for the Flames. It really begs the question, Robert, what do we consider a successful season for the Calgary Flames?
Yeah, I mean, it depends who you ask. If you're asking Craig Conroy and Ryan Huska, obviously it's making the playoffs and accumulating the most points as possible. But I think when you talk to a lot of fans and a lot of people who are more kind of future oriented in terms of their view on the Calgary Flames, like myself, I would say a successful season is once again development of young players. What does Zane Parekh look like in October compared to April? You know, does he look like a different player? Does he continue to grow and develop? And can he become a top four defenseman by the end of the year? You know, if he can, that's a big win for this team, and that's something that I would consider to be successful. Like, can Dustin Wolf continue to play at the level that he can? Can Kevin Ball, you know, officially establish himself as a legit top four defenseman? Can Coronado score 30? Can Zary get 50 points? You know. Then you got all those guys in kind of their mid-20s in terms of, you know, Frost, Farabee, Sharangovich. Can they get a little bit more consistency in their games? Like, you know, can Hunter Brstevich step in the lineup in the second half of the year? Kuznetsov, Solovyov, can one of them secure a role? Pospisil, you know, like, I could go on and on. But that's kind of what a successful season looks like to me. Like, I'm not too concerned whether or not they're going to make the playoffs, just because, like we've talked about, the West is really good and it's going to be really hard to make it. So if you're getting all of your emotions tied up into a playoff race, like, I think you might be kind of let down by the end of the year. So that's why I'm thinking, you know, set like other goals and expectations in terms of young players' development, and just hope that the team's competitive and plays fun, entertaining hockey. I think between those two things, I think that's kind of what I would personally consider a successful season.
Yeah, I like that you went that road. I really do. Too much of when we talk about a successful season is what's the results of the team. And while that's important, I believe it's secondary to what the Flames are trying to accomplish this year. It's another step in your plan. It's another step in the growth of your players is a success for me. If you want to talk about results on ice, I think being anything but mediocre, mushy middle is a success for the team, because that would mean they're either one, they're making the playoffs and we get the joys of a playoff run, or two, they're in the draft lottery and we get an opportunity to have a really special player join the organization. So I think on-ice success is one of those two options. Don't finish 16th and 17th and pick in the middle, please, again. But I really think it's more important is we're talking at the end of the year that we saw Brstevich come up and play well. We saw Parekh take the step we all think he's going to take. We saw Dustin Wolf continue to put up ridiculous numbers for a goaltender. We see the Zary coming back and finding his form. We see Frost take a step forward. We see Sharangovich find his scoring form. We see Coronado continue to progress as being a top 6 legitimate scoring threat in the National Hockey League. We see possibly one other forward, like say Honzik, for example, come and take a step forward in his progression in the team and in the organization. And this team continued to build itself towards being a playoff contender. I think that's the bigger picture, the bigger issue, and the bigger success will be, what do these players do in progression the Flames are not winning the Stanley Cup in the 25-26 season. If they do, I will eat my hat. I really will. This team needs to take a step forward in their progression, and that I think that will deem whether it's a successful season or not. Because if this team fails, if this team doesn't see success from Dustin Wolf, or Perek doesn't live up to the hype, or we don't see Prestevich or these other kids taking a step forward, I think you can say that's a failure by the Flames not developing these guys. You drafted them. Time to develop them and build something with them to be a successful organization, to be a team that's going to compete for playoff spots for years to come here. So I'm very much with you, Robert, on this one.
There's also what happens away from the NHL, which I think will definitely determine what a successful season is. Like, I really hope that guys like Cullen Potter and Cole Reshny in the NCAA take major steps forward in their development. I hope they play in the World Juniors. Then there's the American Hockey League. You got guys like Matvei Gridin, who there, a lot of people in the prospecting community are really high on. They think he's a really good player. What can he do? Can Adar Suniev score 20, 25 goals in the American Hockey League? Can Sam Honzek finally show in the AHL why he was a first-round pick? Can he be a 50, 60-point guy, good two-way forward in the American Hockey League? Etienne Morin's going to play his first year in the AHL. Andrew Basha, those types of guys, you really want to see progression from them. And then you got your Battaglias and Henry Muse. Like you really want to see continued progression from those players as well. So there's definitely success from an NHL perspective, but even from an AHL, NCAA, and junior perspective, you still want to see development from all those guys, because let's face it, the next couple years of Flames hockey, it's going to be kind of what we saw last year. It'll be probably a good team, not a great team, and you're going to have veterans being the ones that are kind of leading the way. But in 3 or 4 years from now, all the guys I just talked about there, they're going to have to be the ones to step up and become the next core group of this team, and they're going to have to be the ones that take the Flames to the next level. So any type of development, any type of improvement you can see from these prospects that I just mentioned will only benefit the team moving forward. And I think, having them grow and having them develop and becoming NHL players is the most important thing for this Flames organization. I don't think it's making the playoffs at the NHL level. I think it's getting all their young guys prepared to move into the new arena and start to build that new core group of players and develop together, and hopefully one day, get to the top 10 of the NHL standings on a consistent basis.
No, that's a very good point by you. You got me thinking there as you're talking. You've got Kadri and Backlund, who are mid to late 30s, that are going to not be here in a couple of years. You've got you've got Coleman, you've got Huberdeau aging. So you need players to come in here and take those steps to take over for those aging veterans down the road here. That's a very good point, Robert, where it's like the success of people, when you talk about a season, they immediately go to who won the Stanley Cup or who's a playoff team. But I think there's more to it, like you've mentioned there. Make sure you have your prospects being developed. Make sure that these guys are taking a step. Make sure you're putting yourself in a position where, hey, down the road, what is Matthew Graded? Where is he going to play this year? What's going to give him the best for his development here? Hey, we need this center in Cole Reshny to actually work out, because we see him as a successor to Nazem Kadri when he moves on in a few years, and so on and so forth. Very good point by you, Robert. I really like that you brought that up as well here.
It is an interesting topic, because like you said, like the guys who are really the ones leading the charge on this team right now, from the NHL level, you got a couple young guys in there, like Dustin Wolf, obviously. Matt Coronado, he was a driving force from an offensive perspective last year. But when you really look at it, it was Nazem Kadri, it was Jonathan Huberdeau, it was Backlund, it was Coleman, it was Mackenzie Weegar. I know Rasmussen had a bad year, but he's in that mix. All these veteran players are the guys that are kind of leading the charge for this team. And, pretty soon, either their contracts are going to be up, or they're going to get to a point where Craig Conroy might want to get something in return for them. And then you're going to have to turn this team over entirely to this next generation of players. So how they go from where they are now to where they need to be 3 or 4 years from now is going to be really interesting to see, how the Flames go about that, and just how all these young players are able to sort of take the culture that these veterans have built and make it their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot on the plate for the development staff to get to, but it's important. That's how teams that consistently find themselves at the top of the standings, continually winning games. That's how they do it. They develop these players. Yes, obviously trades happen, but you look at teams that are successful year in and year out, and that's a big reason why they do it. Is they have a succession plan. They have a way to replace a player who moves on and who can help them move to the next step in the next level here.
Yeah, and like just like one kind of last point about that, I just thought it was kind of interesting is. So all these guys who are in their mid to late 30s who, aren't going to be around for a long time, they're going to pass on the culture and the leadership and all that to the next group of players. But when you take a look at that next group, the guys who are in that like 25 to 30 range, it's not a great group of players. Where the Flames really have a strong group is that kind of 23 and under.
Mm-hmm.
So like once again, it's going to be interesting to see how that group kind of takes over. Like the guys who are in their kind of 25 to 30 range are guys like Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, Yegor Sharangovich, Kevin Ball. Like it's not a great group of players, and it's going to be interesting to see how the leadership and culture moves from the older guys, the Backlunds and the Colemans of the world, and Uyghurs to now the next group of guys like. Just because there's all this talk about culture, we heard so much about culture from Flames media this year, and even just like the team in general, they're making such a big deal about it. So it's great that they've said it. I wonder how they're going to go about continuing to carry it on as the years goes on here, and when some of these older guys start to leave, I think that whole thing's going to be fascinating to watch over the next 3 to 4 years.
And that's where I think it's important as well for guys like Frost, Farabee, Sharangovich, those guys that you mentioned there. I think it's important for them to have that culture as part of their DNA as well, as part of the Flames, because those can be your role players. Those can be your veteran leaders to help these guys you're bringing in here. Because the one thing this Flames team will lack right now between the old guys and the guys in the future is there's no skill in that middle there. So they need these guys that are still here, the Frosts, the Farabees, to be those role guys, to be those guys who can be a veteran on a third line or a second pair, et cetera, to help these guys bring in these younger players so they can pass that culture on. I think they should be the go-between, and they're going to be vastly important players as the old regime moves on here from the Flames, and bringing up the Cole Reshneys and the Potters and the Hansiks and those guys as they come through. They got to learn from the next group of guys. So I think it's vitally important that guys like Morgan Frost bounce back this year. Farabee has to bounce back this year. I think it's very important that those players have themselves a good season or two to help be that bridge, be that gap between these late 30 guys and these guys that were just drafted recently in the last couple of seasons here that we're hoping will be the future of the Flames here. So I think it goes hand in hand here. It's a really good point by you. That culture has been built. Now, how do you pass it down to that next generation? I think that middle group is going to be vastly important. I like what Conroy did, bringing in those guys that are 25, 26 years old. That can be a very important group for the Flames. We always love talking about the shiny objects, the Cole Reshneys, the Zane Parek's. We almost tend to forget about, hey, we need those non-sexier players. We need the Morgan Frosts to be a big part of this organization, help this team, because those players help you win down the line if you can get to where you want to go ultimately, and that is playoffs and Stanley Cup run here.
Yeah, and if I were Ryan Huska, I would tell him. If I was Ryan Huska, I would tell the Michael Backlunds and Mackenzie Uyghurs and all that older veteran group of players, like starting this year, take Connor Zary, take Matt Coronado, Zane Parek, Dustin Wolf, take them under your wing, and they always talk about like this leadership group. There's like the core 7, like add those young guys that I just mentioned, Wolf, Parek, Zary, Coronado, add them to that group, like starting this year, and start to kind of let those veteran players take the younger guys under their wing, because the next era of Calgary Flames hockey is going to be on the shoulders of the players I just mentioned. And obviously your Potters and your Reshneys are going to be in there too, but they're not at the NHL level right now. So yeah, if I were the Flames, I would make it a big time priority to take all those guys under their wing and start to turn them into leaders too. and start to kind of show them the ropes and show them, like, when we're gone, because a lot of these guys who are, in their mid to late 30s, they're going to be gone within the next 2 years. Show them how it's done. And, I think that'd be really interesting for this Calgary Flames team to kind of go about their leadership core that way.
Yeah, I agree there. We talk about that middle group, Robert, and this next conversation is vastly around those guys because I think they fit this conversation of who needs to have a bounce back season the most. Who are players that you need to have take a big, massive step forward and rebound and have a better season for the Flames this year? Because I think this conversation circles around those guys that we were just talking about. And one of the players that I would really hound on, I've said his name more than once on this show here, is Morgan Frost. I think it's vastly important that this player has a big season for the Flames, shows why the Flames went out and got him from the Philadelphia Flyers, why he should be in that middle six and a leader for this team down the road. Because I think we kind of know what Frost is at the NHL level. Now it's time for him to show the Flames and prove the Flames right on this thing. He came over in a trade, obviously, mid-season. And he was okay for the Flames, but the production wasn't there. So I need to really see Morgan Frost take that next step in his Flames development and say, hey, I can be an effective member of this team. I can take some of the secondary scoring away from a guy like Michael Backlund so he can, have less on his plate. I can be a guy to carry that power play one unit. I can be this guy to go out here and have a better game at the end of a game to help kill off a game or help get us back into a game. So for me, I think Morgan Frost leads my list of players who need to have a bounce back season / take a step forward here, because I think he's going to be vastly important to the Flames. And I think if he can do that, he can be a guy that Ryan Huska can count on. I think he is a good player, but I think he can be a great player for the Flames. What about you, Robert?
I like that one. Another thing when it comes to Morgan Frost, I shouldn't think about it this way, but I kind of do, is that he's taking a center spot away from Connor Zary right now. Mm-hmm. So I think it's vitally important that he steps up and shows like why Craig Conroy spent as much assets as he did to acquire Frost in that trade.
Yep.
And with Michael Backlund being your shutdown guy, he might be in like the 30-point range. Like, he's not going to put up a lot of offense next year. You need Frost to put up offense down the middle of the ice, because you know what you're going to get from Kadri. Like I said, Backlund's not going to put up much offense anymore. So now it's on Frost to become like a 50-point center iceman and be a guy that can move the puck, be a guy that can be creative and set up his teammates and put the puck in the back of the net. Like, that's going to be critical for this team next year. So yeah, that's a really good one. I really think Yegor Sharangovich needs to step up and show why he's worth the $5.75 million over the next 5 years. Last year, like, obviously the biggest concern with the Flames and the thing that held them back the most was just their lack of goal scoring. And, one of the reasons why was because a guy like Sharangovich, not only was he not scoring that much, like he only scored 17 goals last year, but he also just wasn't creating any opportunities. He wasn't dangerous. He wasn't setting up his teammates. Like, the guy was a bit of a black hole offensively last year. And to score 17 goals while being so ineffective is actually kind of impressive. Yeah. So, like, if Yegor can just step his game up, get, up the intensity level, do a better job making his teammates better, and getting more scoring chances. Like, the guy barely shot the puck last year. Like that guy should be shooting the puck all the time. Like, he's got a wicked wrister. He's got a great one-timer. He's got all the skill and potential there to be a constant 25 to 33, 35 goal scorer in the NHL. And he needs to do it because this is the first year of a 5-year deal. And, Craig Conroy's invested in him. He's a big part of the offense moving forward here. So I think it's going to be imperative for him to have a bounce back year and score at least 25. And it's not just the goals, but it's also the assists too. The Flames need him to make a few more plays and be more of an offensive generator than he was last year, because last year was ugly. Like, it was terrible. And like I said, he still scored 17 goals. So the potential's there. And Sharangovich, kind of like the Flames organization, is good year, bad year, good year, bad year. That's kind of the path he's been on. And this upcoming season is a good year. So let's see him step up and become a more of a big time offensive generator for this team.
The biggest frustration for me with Sharon Govich is you saw him score the 30-plus goals, but it's how he scored those 30-plus goals. It was the power play. It was the one-time shot. It was using his wrist shot. He has arguably the best, if not the best shot on the Flames roster when he's pure shooting wise. He should be that guy that's on that top line firing off Huberto, one-timers. He should be that guy on that top power play unit on the half wall just ripping in shots. You have that ability as that player, and he's not showing it game in and game out, and that's what's frustrating. I'm not going to allow injuries to be an excuse for Sharon Govich. It's like, no. If you're healthy enough to suit up, you should be healthy enough to produce, because that's what you bring to the lineup. If you can't bring what you are to the lineup, then why are you in the lineup? So I need to see that more from Sharon Govich. And that's kind of where I go with my other guy that I picked here for people that I really need to have step up is, what is Joel Farabee? What is he? What is this player? $5 million. He's 25 years old. He should be in a spot to give you some decent production. He should be in a spot to fit right in with what the Flames need, but he didn't bring it. 31 games, only 6 points. So let that sink in. 6 points in 31 games. He had 1 assist on the power play, and he was playing 14 and a half minutes a night. So he's getting decent minutes. He's getting opportunities, and he's just not producing. Joel Farabee might be the throw-in on the Philadelphia side in this trade, and a lot of Flyer fans, if you go back on social media, be like, you guys are stuck with Farabee type of thing, and they were happy to be rid of this player. And based on what you saw last year with the Flames, you understand why Flyer fans were a bit happy to get rid of this player. But there's got to be something there, because he has scored 20 in this league before. He has produced at a high level before. So what is Joel Farabee, and what can he bring to the Flames lineup? A massive question mark for me, because if he can be close to 20 goal guy, 45, 50 point guy in that middle six for the Flames, that's much needed offense. That's much needed secondary scoring behind those guys that you're asking to produce more. And if you get that kind of production from Farabee, I think he can help propel this team to what they want to be, and that's a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing like power rankings in terms of like what needs to happen in order for the Flames to make the playoffs, I think number 1 on that list might be depth scoring. And it's all the guys we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's Farabee. Like, if Farabee can go from scoring at a 6-goal pace, during his time with the Flames last year, like over 82 games, he was scoring like a 6 to 8 goal pace. If he can go from that to 20 to 25, massive difference. If Morgan Frost, I think he was like at like a 30-point pace over 82 games during his time with the Flames. If he can go from 30 points to 50 to 55, massive. Like, all of a sudden, those two things right there's like an extra 30 goals for the Calgary Flames just in those two players alone. Like, this is such a vitally important year for those guys. So yeah, those are really good picks. And then, I mean, I'll add to that group, and Connor Zary needs to step up and have a big year.
Yeah, love it.
He really does. I mean, he's going to be 24 years old. I find NHL players in that 23 to 24 age range, that's when they really step up. That's when they enter their prime and start to show the player that they're going to become for the next 5 to 8 years. So Zary's entering that time in his career where he needs to come in, step up, and he needs to be a 50 to 60 point guy. Like, he really does, if this team wants to get where they want to go, especially within the next like 3 to 4 years here. Like, he's going to have to be an important player. And before his injuries last year, I think you and I talked about it a lot. Like, he looked great. Like, he looked fantastic. Like,
I love Connor Zary, yeah.
The creativity, the offensive generation, the scoring chances, like all that kind of stuff, carrying the puck up the ice, entering the zone of possession, being a facilitator. Like, he showed like so many skills that were like very impressive that should translate into him being a 50 to 60 point player for this team. But for some reason, just the production wasn't there. I don't know if he was just snake bitten, if it was bad luck, if it, wasn't playing with the best line mates. I don't know what it was, but he didn't put up the production that he needed to. And starting this year is going to be the year where it needs to happen. And it all starts in training camp. So if Connor Zary's listening to the podcast, sign the effing deal. Sign the goddamn contract and get into training camp. Get ready to go for this season, because this is a big year for the guy. And, like we've been talking about, the Flames want to be truly competitive. He's going to have to be a big part of this team. He's going to have to be that 50, 60 point guy. And, I think he's got the talent, and I think he's got all the skills and in the world to do it. We'll see if he's able to put it all together here.
There's no reason why we can't pencil Zari when he's at the top of his game, playing at his game, as that second line left winger. There's no reason why that shouldn't be in pen every single game sheet, because he has that ability, and he's shown that ability. We always put the Huberdeau Kadri together because of that happens, the Coleman Backlund together. Well, it should be Zari and Frost essentially as your second line. Like, it should be almost in pen every single game. Both of those guys have the ability to be those players. We need to see it. So I'm with you. Zari, stop fighting over what is $100,000, whatever hell you guys are fighting over, and just sign the damn deal. Show the Flames why they should have paid you more money. Be motivated. Be that player. Come to camp. Show them why you are what you say that you are, and make them pay you more in the long run. We've seen players do it before, and it works out in their favor. Go ahead and show the Flames why they should pay you more money. I think Connor Zary is a huge piece of the Flames down the line, no matter where this team goes and which direction it chooses. I think Connor Zary is a big piece of it, and I think he needs to show that this year, take a big step forward. I ragged on the defense earlier in this episode, and I wanted to put in a third choice for players that I think need to have a bounce back or breakout season. It's hard to say this player should break out or needs to have a bounce back. It's kind of more of this player needs to copy and paste, and we've talked about him before in the show here, so we don't need to go long on it. I had a third one because I didn't know what you picked here, Rob, because we did some really awful communicating on that part of things. I think Joe Hanley needs to copy and paste what he did last year for this Flames team to be successful. I think Joe Hanley fits in that category. Not really a breakout, but show us again what you did last year and kind of build upon last year's results a little bit here to help this Flames transition on the back end. You're going to lose Rasmus Andersson. There are question marks about what Parek's going to be and how to put Parek in there. You need stability, and I think Joe Hanley fits in that category for me.
Yep, could not agree more. And yeah, we talked about a little bit earlier in the episode. He's a big part of this team now, which is unbelievable to say. So, I mean, and then if I were to pick a defenseman here for bounce back, if he's here, but it's Rasmus Andersson.
Thank God for not saying your man off.
Yeah, I don't think it's realistic that he's going to be in the lineup this year. But when it comes to Andersson, if he's going to be on this team, which I think he will be. Mm-hmm. If the Flames want to be competitive and they want to push for a playoff spot, he's going to have to be here pretty much up until the deadline.
Yep.
And he's going to have to be way better than he was last year. If him and Kevin Ball can be like a legit second pairing and not chew on minuses like Andersson did last year, like if they can just kind of break even or even win their matchups a little bit, that can make all the difference in the world for this team. Because Mackenzie Weegar is going to be a really solid shutdown defenseman. You hope him and Hanley can recreate their success from last year. Like the ball Andersson pairing, they really struggled. Like you just take a look at the goals against at 5-on-5. Mm-hmm. Like it was crazy. Like they got badly outscored. They got outchanced, and that can't happen. And in my opinion, one of the reasons why I think that was the case is just because they were given just too much responsibility. I think they were the Flames' number one pairing for, the first 4 months of the season. And they were asking Kevin Ball, who was only playing in his second full season in the NHL, and Rasmus Andersson, who's a good defenseman, a good top four defenseman. They're asking them to take on the toughest matchups and shut down opponents' best lines. Like they're getting the McKinnon matchup. They're getting McDavid. They're getting, whoever it may be, all the top players around the league. They're getting that matchup. And I just don't think they handled it very well. So, with the emergence of Hanley and Weegar as a legit number one pair, and now that they can kind of take on the secondary matchups, I think that could be really big for them. So if Anderson's going to stay around, I think it's going to be really important for him to have a better year, not only for himself, because it's a contract year, it's an Olympic year, and then also just to rebuild his trade value, because I don't think his trade value is at the maximum height it should be at, because I find his trade value is mainly based on his contract and his reputation, not his skill set and not what he did last year. So if he can step up and be the guy he was 2, 3, 4 years ago, I think the Flames will be able to get more for him in a trade, and then he'll in turn be able to get way more in a future contract. So yeah, Anderson's going to be a big part of this team if he's there.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. It's one that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about either, right? Like everyone thinks the Rasmus Sanderson's already gone. Well, if he stays with the Flames here, he's playing a good 50-plus games with this team before that trade deadline hits.
Yep.
So it's imperative that he has a good season if you're a Flames fan. This Flames team is it's full of question marks. It's full of what ifs. It's full of who knows what's going to happen. It's full of about 100 seasons that could play out in front of our faces this season for the Flames. As it sits today in we're in mid-August already. We could see a number of things happen for this team, and I'm really not sure what we're going to get from the Flames. So pending other moves as well, we'll see what the Flames can do here headed towards training camp. Robert, anything else you want to bring up on the pod today? If not, tell the Flame fans what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca. Awesome article that I just read from you before we did the show here today as well. What's coming up from you, Robert?
Thank you. Yeah. Check out that article. It's just about the pros and cons of keeping Rasmus Andersson on the roster up until the trade deadline. Like, he's obviously going to get traded at some point, but it's just about,
we hope,
starting the season with Rasmus Andersson. So I just wrote some pros and cons about that, which was fun. But yeah, I mean, with where the Flames are in their retool, this is kind of like the down period. This is like where they're in the mushy middle. So, sometimes it might be hard for Flames fans to get up for games and get really excited about what's going on. And it's totally fair, completely fair. But I think if you look at it just from an entertainment standpoint, in terms of storylines, things to watch for next year, I actually think next season is going to be pretty interesting. We discussed a lot of the different storylines in this episode today, but like you said, there's just so many what ifs. There's so much uncertainty around this group, and just seeing how it all plays out, I actually think will be pretty fun and it'll be pretty interesting. And I think that's kind of what I'm going to be focusing on next season, because if you just get caught up in the wins and losses and should they tank, should they not tank, I just don't think it's going to make for a very fun hockey season. So I know, like, for next year, like, I'm going to be really focusing on just like individual storylines and player performance and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actually really looking forward to the season. I think it's going to be super interesting.
It's going to be a fascinating watch, and if you're going to get hung up on whether they're the playoff team or the tank team, I think you're in for a long season. So yeah, I like your approach there, Robert. I think I'm very much similar to it. I want to see how Zary rebounds. I want to see what happens with Sharon Govich. I'd like to see the Parekh storyline. Obviously, is a big one. What happens with Rasmus Sander? All these storylines for the Flames coming up this season. It's going to be a fascinating to watch it all unfold. You can find him, Robert Munich, at Ring of Fire CGY on X there as well. Don't go check out that article. It actually was really, really good. I'm Vintage Johnny 84 across social media, and of course the show is Red Mile Rundown. Wherever you like to do your social media content, we are there. And thank you so much again for making these last couple episodes for some of the best watched episodes of the show. We appreciate your support, your love. Enjoy the rest of summer. We'll be back in a couple of weeks here to chat some more Flames hockey with you here on the Red Mile Rundown.